Masks came out for Counter-Strike, but after a few weeks, they were never seen again. The same with other items Valve decided to put into Counter-Strike until they vanished from the game. So here are the official Counter-Strike items that disappeared, like the Spectral Shiv, the invisible knife that was only out for a few weeks back in 2018. It was in the Halloween update with the description, "Ghosts love ghost knives when they get their hands on one. Look out, they'll try to stab you the first chance they get. Too bad they are a ghost and ghost knives can't hurt people." The Spectral Shiv was very similar to a flip knife but had this cool invisible look. This was only added to the game for 2 weeks, but you can check out the Spectral Shiv for yourself in the game if you load up CSGO, run a command so you can drop melee weapons, and then give yourself the ghost knife. Would you want to see something similar come out in the future, but maybe for a different knife with the same spectral effect? In Counter-Strike, during Operation Hydra, there was a game mode called Hunter-Gatherers, where players had to pick up dog tags for points. The dog tags had different tints, depending on whether they belonged to your team or the enemy. And well, after Operation Hydra, Valve decided to keep the most popular modes, such as Wingman and Flying Scoutsman, which meant Hunter-Gatherers didn't make the cut, so we never saw dog tags again. Did you know CSGO had a usable flashlight and even night vision goggles? They were both in older Counter-Strikes like Condition Zero, but very early on in CSGO you could use a flashlight. It was accessible with console commands until the Arms Deal update, where Valve replaced this with the more convenient inspect button. Would you rather inspect skins or use a flashlight? A similar situation happened with night vision. It was usable in previous Counter-Strikes, but when it came to CSGO, Valve cut it very early on. You can still find it in the game by doing a few console commands. Since most maps are well lit in CSGO, night vision and a flashlight weren't really needed. But when you check out a map with a dark environment like DE Chateau, it shows you what it would be like if we actually had night vision and flashlights as permanent items. Talking about old items, Counter-Strike also used to have a gas grenade, otherwise known as the CS grenade. When thrown, it would create a cloud that any player inside will take damage from. The gas grenade would also make enemies cough, revealing their position. Here's a picture before it was cut from Counter-Strike CZ, costing $400 with a description of "Chokes enemies, don't forget to buy a gas mask," which goes into the gas mask. As you can guess, it takes away the effects from the gas grenade. It was spotted in a 2002 interview where it shows the buy menu, and there's still a few remaining HUD and kill icons for it in the game files. Both items were reported to have been cut from Counter-Strike as Gearbox failed to meet their deadlines, which led to the project getting scrapped. Clothing items have been a hot topic for future Counter-Strike content, but did you know there was already an update with official masks? Yes, this was a real update to CSGO in 2014, which brought over 30 different masks, with Valve saying, "Each of our hardened operators have decided to have a little Halloween fun by wearing masks. Be sure to look out for Payday 2 and Team Fortress 2. Depending on the game mode, masks were chosen at random and changed after either each round or game. When the Halloween update finished, well, we never saw masks again. This experiment shows how clothing customization could potentially work in Counter-Strike. So would you want this to make a permanent return? Do you remember when Counter-Strike maps used to have unique agents for each team with factions? These weren't just cosmetic differences, they also affected visibility based on the map. But for CS2, 12 different factions and 60 agents got removed and have yet to be seen again. It is speculated that some of the popular agents might become purchasable again in the future, as although the map factions are removed, there were still plenty of designs that players loved, which just left us with only these two default ones. There was also the Heavy Assault Suit, aka Heavy Armor, that would offer players 200 armor compared to the Kevlar and Helmet's 100. This was first added to CSGO in 2016 with Operation Wildfire, as there was an enemy with it on, the Heavy Phoenix. Later in Operation Hydra, Valve allowed players to experience the heavy armor themselves with the Heavy Counter-Terrorist. The Heavy Assault Suit became usable in different Hydra Guardian missions and the War Games mode, based on the casual game mode but with the option to purchase heavy armor for $6,000. But once Hydra finished, the War Game disappeared and so did the 200 extra health from the heavy armor, and we have never seen it since. CSGO also had a Repulsor Device that Valve decided to use for only one single mission. Back in 2019 for Shattered Web in the co-op mission, Quarantine Isolated Eliminated, players used a Repulsor Device that allows them to stand in the danger zone. You were allowed to pick it up and move the device, but once Shattered Web finished and the mission was removed, so was the use for the Repulsor Device, making it disappear from Counter-Strike as it never saw official release in Danger Zone either. It is still found in the game file, so maybe it sees a return. There was also the Scar 17. This weapon got cut early from CSGO, but it was essentially the M4A4. They had very similar stats, and the Scar had details all the way to cut achievements, proving that it was planned at some point. It's clearly spotted in the logo, but Valve ultimately decided to keep it out, and it makes you wonder, what if Valve never replaced the Scar 17? Talking about weapons, back in 2006, Valve announced a big change to the game that did not go well. This was dynamic weapon pricing for Counter-Strike Source, where each Monday, the prices of weapons and items would change depending on how much they were used that week. For example, if 20% of people were spending all their money on one gun, like the M4, the cost of the gun would increase by 20%. This obviously caused big problems in the meta and balancing in prices. There were times when a deagle would cost more than an AWP. After only a few months of players complaining, Valve retracted the changes and removed dynamic weapon pricing. 18 years later, we have not seen it or any similar feature. So while some items like the Spectral Shiv were just limited time updates, others like map-based faction agents offered a special gameplay element that many players enjoyed. Do you remember any of these removed things, and if so, what do you want to see come back?